I brought three books that I had laying around. This one is actually from Vantage Press from New York City that I did with a friend of mine from Boston, Dennis Ford, who you published one of his poems in the what's that? The Breathe. You put one of his poems in Breathe, and so this was four people getting together. Megan was like kind of a mover and shaker up in the New York, Boston area, and her thing was she was a traveler, graduated from Berkeley with a degree in international business and finance. You don't see that on many poetry books. And then S.P. Clark was writes for a rock and roll trade paper called To Louise. And Dennis Ford is a successful career in software technology, in addition to his many years spent as a social worker. He was a social worker for quite a while. And I met him here in Portland. So I'll just read the first poem here in the book. I don't think I've ever read this poem, and it's sort of like Sam Shepard meets Edgar Allan Poe at some bar or something, you know. But anyway, it's called "I Know the Darkened Window That Grows Colder Than the Night," and it just kind of gets going here. I know the darkened window that grows colder than the night, the barren measuring cup that Nocturne's recipes recites. The early hopeless moments that empty morning dreams ignite with unexpected nightmares that leave one blinded by the light, with litanies and prophecies that dark thoughts systematically incite. I know the darkened window that is colder than the night. Ink blots crash black and white as specters float in fearful dark respite. Imagination's emerald garden haunts the room of childhood screams of fright as deft apparitions trick the mind into never-ending opiate confessions with night. Sorrowful beauty, hear my cry, hid inside this dark, foreboding tomb. Instead, I wait for my escaping in a sleep of blood inside my ivory womb. My fear of falling reaches unearthly heights and strange, unyielding gloom. No newfound freedom can stop the chill this alien wields best, the chill blue death or lost mind fusion that turns love into illusion for a frosty joke on our disbelief and internal disenchantment. I know the darkened window that grows colder with the night, the empty, sad post-mortem twilight of unimaginable sad sight. Eerily did I wait in car seats by neon cigarette streetlight with gnashing, crashing, snorting laughter in gravel, crunching down at night, waiting for some whiskey-eyed stranger to hoist me off to bed, and to a floor and rug awaiting in which to rest my feather head. I feigned my sleep in late-night banter, careful not to wake the ghosts. In elfish fever dropped memories towed, poured wine down mouths of sadness, shed tears into fruit jars, open unto the lights of fortune cast. I know the darkened window that grows colder than the night, the blinding, blistering heart rage of infinitesimal soft flight. I am a thin, uneasy pauper, yearning for a late night solace light. I watch angry dreams break off, cry and die as they sink before my feet. I know the black madness of fear, sweating off the heart, the broken strings of shattered cellos lost before they strike. Where's thy mirthy tithings, O remorseful sacrament? In flotsam jetsam appetite, I feel my belly tight, bulging and digesting that inimitable gadfly, famous love. Conditional by the hems and seams, she shreds her sacred garment truss, deceiving me with scraps of demon spleen I'm forced to eat till dusk. Of this I grovel and can only hope and beg and trust. For all my trouble, I might get this before I rust. I am. I can't hear you, but I see you with your hands. So you can hear me, obviously. Um, when I was writing my poetry back in I guess it'd be the late 90s, I was sitting at a Starbucks and these people were staring at me as I was, there's nothing more frenetically strange than somebody writing a book or writing poetry, right? And these people were looking at me, and finally they came over and said, "Are you writing a book or something? Is you freaking jacked up guy, you know?" And I was working on this poem, and I remember they came over and they read this poem. And they went, "Oh, that's what you're doing." And the poem was called "Death Like Beautiful Fall." And this poem goes like this. It's the same book. Death like beautiful fall, strands of faltering glory, initially furiously green, beautiful resignation. It let death grace us with the end of immediate light, a nova myriad of bioluminescence. An eloquent ending with red, yellow, golden, brown, celestial color key coded. Rain descends sadly, as spring's dragon soars Midas above the lake of time. And that's, I wrote a poem for James Joyce too in this book. And I remember I gave it to somebody for a reading at the library of Northwest Portland. And they went, "Oh my God, get this thing out of here," you know. And it has to do with the poetic structure. I'm a graduate student in literature, so there's no hope for me. So I have all this weird stuff in my head. You know, I'm always trying to remember what somebody told me back in class. But this is for James Joyce, or Sonny Jim, as they called him. His family called him Sonny Jim. Watching neon tetras, mono, di, tri, penta, hexa, hepta, octagoners. Blue tank think, remarkable glass, press, stress, greased for yearning, racing like Irish wish witches. Oh, not that ageling. Druid Phoenician? Who's responsible for the Aquarian aged? Sonny Jim? Steve's hero? Dead of us paralysis? Macintosh? Too much Bucky and Molly McGinnis. Then Viagra apocalypse on thee, Bloomingdale. Agreed. Matradede, her knees on sandy moors. Let Finnegan wake for Ezra's sake. Anyway, been a while since I've seen that one. And here's another one for the same book. This is the Spanish Armada. It's called the Spanish Armada. And when I was down in Cabo St. Lucas, I thought about this poem a lot for some reason because the Spanish had pretty much trashed Mexico. And when they came to England, to conquer England, it was said that all the witches in Scotland and Wales and Ireland formed a big giant circle and made the winds blow, and it crashed all the ships. But who knows, right? Could just be intentionality, but it worked. And this is called the Spanish Armada. The Queen of Spain threw a purple kiss and with a twist flung her velvet wrist, crying, "I am all of this." She sent her ships to England's shores to claim supremacy. But the witches of the Isle knew, so the legend goes, and gathered in circles sinister, chanting woe to Spain and its queen. Bring the gales and sweet Mab's reign, to sink the black bull's reign. Soon ships were tossed and battered from the power of the chanting, sending her majesty's fleet into the ocean deep, all lost in scorn by the mistress of misery. The queen's royal hat fell into her lap with England still free. So that's from this book here. I'm not sure what we're doing for time, probably 5 more minutes here. So this is Blueby the Night. This was kind of strange because I kind of sent it on a lark to Austin Macaulay because all those sort of those publishing places are all a joke, you know, as you know. And but I basically said, I don't give you any money. I know you guys hustle people. I used to work for a timeshare company, so you're talking, you know, you can't kid a kidder. So they actually read it. And because I had opened up for Ray Manzarek of the Doors and Michael McClure and Michael C. Ford, who was Jim Morrison's best friend, I think that kind of a little bit of pressure on them, or you know, or whatever. They thought that maybe I was legit, you know. And they and I told them that I wanted to do a poetry novel. So I think that helps when you're dealing with people. You have to have a theme, you know. In art shows, they always say, "What's your theme? What are you doing here?" You know, you can't. So my theme was based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which was when people wrote novels after the novella, the idea was to develop a character, to build a character. And so she built her character part by part, literally. So my book is me with my poems building my character, which is Luton Thomas Jones. So all my poems are pieces of me that eventually turns into hopefully not a monster, but at least a living, breathing creature trying to raise itself up, you know. I'll read just a couple poems from this. There's one I wrote called Romanticism that's in this, and it goes like this. Bonita tree, lilting, drooping, soft cobalt, cabaret blooms, emerald serpents, woven interpretations of spring's signatures. Taken back, I gaze on the magnificent tree, quiet like Lake Massachusetts, Wellesley compass, a nunnery seminary, Holy Ghost songs, raspberry groves, aspen whisperings, blue addendum eggs, Neptune gorgons gavotte to my favorite sanity, giant Cinderella's April ballroom. That was a different time in my life. I was writing like that. And then here's a poem about my death. I wrote a couple poems about when I die, you know, what it would be like. And this is called When My Eyes No Longer See. The world holds true. A child is nurtured. My unique pathos is angst alive, an atomic painting. Life and death moving with or without me, always to be joined by earth, air, and sea. Pale as sunlight's glimmer, ghost angels fastly glide to light our motherlode fair. When my eyes no longer see, I won't hear dull whisperings of passing cars, only music from children playing, with green growing grass askew and bursting flowers anew, here now, every day, new day gone. Eternity to see, life to life. Soon all that rings true will be breathed in and breathed out into my round, conscious, glowing id. The eye's peak hole is a filter to the whole of darkness and blackness. Lost light knows the void. Now, later, sooner, not better. Gives hope the best will to remain in thought, always beautifully true. And I'll do this last one here. And so the first poem in this book, as a novel, I say, I don't know if you've ever read James Joyce's The Dubliners. He starts it out with the moo cow. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that book. And so he starts it up where the person in the book is him as a little kid. So he writes like a little kid would write. So the kid's going the moo cow, and then as the book develops, he's grown up. So he's writing like a grown up. And in my book, I'm writing philosophical in my 20s, early 20s. And the first thing I wrote was, the big bright sun comes up each day like a yellow cosmic flower. Hope is a tool in the hands of monsters. And then the last poem in the book, this is how you complete the novel. And it's winds of the horrible chill, winds of the merciless fire, winds of sunken time. The night creeps and moans, its stretched limbs, random disconnect, a moment pulled into another. We dream of margarine kisses, seminal sleep, Raggedy Ann Andy, lost, freezing, lonely American streets of commerce. A prayer burns white light, warm death resin. Cast out peons, rake the ground for quarters, the seething sod shatters. O moment, O time of heart, O misery release us. The mind wanders the temporal landscape, life's demise. You realize it is you the wind hisses to, because you tried so hard to care, knowing it's impossible. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
With all of you here today. I thought I would read some poems from my chapbook, Mother Kingdom, which came out 2 years ago this spring from Slapping Hall Press out in the Hudson Valley. And I kind of think of this chapbook as like my second child. So my first child is a human who just turned 11, but this is my second child, and they just turned 2, I guess. So, but this chapbook, it's about motherhood, but it's also about how to be a mother to yourself. It's about queerness and identity. I grew up, I've lived in Portland for over 20 years, but I grew up in rural Missouri on the Osage River. And so that setting is one of the other characters in this chapbook. I thought I would start with a poem called Evolution, which the setting is my father used to look for arrowheads a lot when I was young, which honestly bored me to tears. But I think now that I am in my mid 40s, it's something I'm more drawn to, that kind of stillness. I've actually recently gotten into birding, which my kiddo thinks is very boring. But anyway, this one's called Evolution. Was it when I followed my father to the fields, his back hunched, searching for arrowheads, my feet sinking in the newly turned earth? Or was it seeing my mother from the doorway, her back a waiting crescent in the dark? Words came easily to me then, alone with paper, my mind a sweet shadow, time a blanket around my shoulders. But coming out my mouth, they choked and stumbled, my face the crushed color of cherries stuck to the bottom of a boot. When I told my father I was gay, he was chopping radishes, their red skins half moons on the cutting board, little gleams of white like a promise worth keeping. His careful hands slicing, their rough wintered edges that held so many things, dogs, babies, stones the color of starlight, my wild heart beating the night's calm rhythm. What can I fix you to eat? My mother was not so easy. Her face pinched pale in the thick dark of her bedroom, thin covers a moat of righteous limbs, and I the only sinner. Even now, all these years later, my heart closes when I hear her voice. Today it's cold, but the crocuses are coming up, ochre pollen petals, small as thimbles. Soon the geese will head back north, their black wings cutting through soundless cloud. Let's see. Thank you. My next poem is called Before Girls There Was God. I went to Catholic school. That's part of this poem. Also, my father one of his jobs, he was a landscape maintenance person. And so I loved going to work with him. One of his jobs was he cut grass at cemeteries in my hometown. So that's kind of how this poem starts. It's called Before Girls There Was God. When I was young, I'd ask my father to go to work with him. Sweaty Missouri summers, Mountain Dew and junior mints, cutting grass at the city cemetery. He put me on a riding mower at 10. I had it precisely mapped out. 3 passes for each row, my skinny legs stuck to the hot black seat, the blade lined up just so to get close enough to the graves without scraping the sides. At 17, I got religion. For 3 days, Catholic girls in sleeping bags held hands, our Bibles tucked lovingly between us. My mother's idea, a retreat will do you good. All the girls were going. I didn't think much of it, just another chore, until I saw her that first night. Darla, the counselor in college, a gold cross nestled in the hollow of her neck, kissed tan with summer. She smelled like coconut lotion and juicy fruit, the clove cigarettes she'd sneak at lunch. When she smiled at me, I felt saved. I came back from that weekend filled with the Holy Spirit, thinking of her taut calves, the tiny blonde hairs just above her knees, the way she said my name. On the mower, it was always 1 pass on the left side, the same thing on the right, my father coming behind me with the string trimmer to get the grass just right between the graves, all the edges I'd missed. He sliced through those blades of stinging July grass like they were silk. But it was the 3rd pass, the last pass, that was my favorite. I called it the middle. I'd floor the motor as fast as it could go, riding on top of those sun-setting souls, bound by the old law. I was still alive, flying, free. Let's see. My next one is called Morning Prayer. And this is like I left my keys in the door one night, like all night long. And I wrote it when we had I wrote it when we had a different president. It's called Morning Prayer. I left my keys in the door all night, forgotten, while fires raged across the globe and our president bombed other countries to distract from his own shame, What kind of place is this to give you, who didn't ask to be born the same way I folded inside my own skin as a girl taught not to take up space? And what did my mother feel as a girl when she heard her door opening in the night? Was that the moment her heart closed for good, when she built a fortress around her small body, brick by brick, when heaven became the only salvation? And did I see the girl in her when she tried to pray my gay away, the tight closed eyes and fists, my heart shrinking, swelling, flying away? All the things we do in the name of love, all the ways we keep trying to get free. Let's see, I think I have one more from the chat book and then I'll read a few new ones. Let's see, this last one is called Poem for My Daughter on the day they announced the end of the world. I heard this sort of fact on the radio about oceans, and it seemed like a very big deal, but the way it was presented, it just sort of faded in the background. So this was my reaction to that. It's called Poem for My Daughter on the day they announced the end of the world. The radio said there had been a mistake. The oceans, in fact, are 60% warmer than we thought. I am cutting broccoli to put in a pot to boil quickly because I have to leave to pick you up from school, to take you to the dentist, where they will examine your tiny teeth, smooth white chiclets, small as my pinky nail, and later there won't be time. There is never enough time. The laundry remains unfolded days after it comes out of the dryer. Weeds grow through the bark chips. Dandelion seeds you wildly blow. No matter how I try, I can never get to the root. You can count to 60 in 2 languages. This morning at breakfast, 16, 17, 18. Mama, are you listening? Now the pot nearly boils over, catching the thin skin of my wrist. Bloom of pain petal, sink pollen, the crust of the oatmeal bowl. It seems the earth is more sensitive to climate than we realized. I know it's time to go. 5 minutes till the last bell. You'll be left too long, and I can't bear the thought of you waiting. Okay, so those are poems from Mother Kingdom. It's actually in Portland, available at Broadway Books. And then the Hudson Valley Writers Center has a great website connected to their center, which is the Slapper and Call Press bookstore. They also, for folks who have never had a chapbook, this is my first one. So they have a great annual contest. I highly recommend entering. Okay, so let's see. My next poem, I wrote this poem a few years ago, and it still rings quite true. It's kind of about current events. And it's called Profile of a 9-Year-Old in Sleep. It's going to be published, I think, in the next issue of a journal called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Urbache Journal UK. So that was exciting. Okay, Profile of a 9-Year-Old in Sleep. And it starts with a quote by Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. The news is so bad, I do dishes. I make the water as hot as I can stand. My mother would wear rubber gloves all the way to the elbow, but these days my hands are bare. As my daughter sleeps, more news, more bombs falling on the other side of the world. Sometimes, and only in a certain light, I am shocked to see her baby self appear in profile, the small uncut jewel of her nose. I remember how her tiny, far-flung arms gathered violently, as if reaching for faraway stars. If we allowed men to cry, would their bombs still fall on us like rain? Just today, we saw how a telescope could beam back the first photographs of a distant past. How many galaxies could fit inside this grain of sand held out at arm's length? And how many of my daughter's dreams could that grain contain, while the ones in charge take more of her rights away? Somewhere, our tilting planet must be turning, turning, turning toward the light. Let's see, I just have a couple more. This one is also coming out in that same journal, Urbace Journal UK. It's called Inheritance. There was a period of time, my kiddo, they're entering 6th grade this fall, but last year in 5th, they were obsessed with mushrooms. I mean, they kind of still are, but I got to thinking about all the things that are underground. This one's called Inheritance. After school, I watch you draw mushrooms all over your 5th grade math. Hedgehog, bolette, and shaggy mane. Such quiet captivation with what's underground. Rich networks of connected tissues. Living memories of a prehistoric past. Some species have been around so long, it is as if they are made of time itself. Me, I'm more of a tree person. Maybe it's from a youth spent swinging from them, wild and alone, looking up at leaf litter while hiding from my parents' anger. Maybe it's how, even now, a certain kind of wind can carry along the tips of the great Japanese maple at the end of my block when I'm out walking the dog, stopping me cold. As if my past is waving back to me in branches. I learned how forests are superorganisms with connections much like ant colonies. Some partners are so tightly connected, they die at the same time, taking up only what space they need. But others with their own damaged root systems seem incapable of working together. This is their inheritance. I wonder what kind of damage lives in me. Okay, thanks. I have one more. It's called The Grief Factory. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a dream. And this is my last poem. This one, I kind of was imagining, like, what if there was a factory that produced grief as like a physical object? I was picturing rocks. Okay, The Grief Factory. At first, stones, rows of them, the quiet calm, the trajectory of the conveyor belt, the hands of the workers adjusting for shape and size. The Grief Factory keeps odd hours. It is usually open in the dead of night. Stone after stone passed down the moving belt, a living record of the grief the world has made. Backs bent to the never-ending task of assembly, to what has been lost. An absence of touch, the sound of your mother's voice, and how their hands could be my own. In the Grief Factory, they are churning out sadness in the shape of small stones. They number in the hundreds, pile up at the workers' feet. Their job is to stack them until the rocks become a wall, until they begin to run out of room. So unaccustomed is the world to love. One day, I filled in at the factory, and after 8 hours on the floor, I looked down in shock. Instead of river rocks, smooth and heavy at the throat, ripe for stacking, suddenly there were flowers. Purple petals, stamens long and yellow, falling in soft piles at my feet. Each and every rock my heart had once held for you now turned to flowers in my hands. And that's when I knew you were really gone, forever lost to me in all the ways you've chosen to use your love as a weapon, a garden growing in the feet of my letting go. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And this is called You, Blue Dice, and Swirl. If I gave a damn, I'd finish the poem you commissioned, but I haven't the energy to concoct so elaborate a lie about you. Blue dice and the squirrel barrel-assing down a swollen Mississippi to save blind boy Jim's 27 National from foreclosure and your morally preposterous escape route. How unsettling to know I beg your fiction. Explain myself with your errant words. All right. This is called In a Room Above a Deli on a Corner in a Dream. Christmas lights kindle the morning civics at Molly's as Jack swears Jimmy was the best barkeep ever. And you nod, yeah, cause you're new in town and don't know yet the whole borough truth, but you swear. You swear on your mother's grave you know these guys from the room above a deli on a corner in a dream, from a room above a deli on a corner in a dream, and you really need some downtime, boyo. But the devil and his deep state have other plans for you. In a room above a deli on a corner in a dream, in a room above a deli on a corner in a dream, in a room above a deli on a corner in a dream. And that is from my latest called Buckshot Reckoning, Poems by Me, whatever that's called. This is a new one, and this is literally based on a true story. Why, oh fucking why, would you make the worst song ever made even louder? Don't our sensory whatnuts and hoodwinks take enough abuse given the dissonant ring of our daily coinage? B, Kenny Loggins, Kenny Rankin. It's a Kenny I know balls the back road bar from County Down who just filed for citizenship and hopes I propose before my train arrives. It's not a Kenny, I say, with a vodka leer, knowing sadly well it is the disturbing and despicable 1974 remake from Swedish rock band Blue Suede of B.J. Thomas's innocuous 1968 song, which wasn't a bad song the first 10, 12, 20,000 times it crossed your consciousness. But now, like this, cranked to unbearable and resounding through yon establishment out into the clamor and calamity of 41st and Lexington on a humid midtown New York day. Well, I ordered another double and made my train. This is from a book called American Mental. It's virtually it's a blueprint through the Trump years. And this is called Because Maybe. Live long enough and the plot becomes apparent. This is the only way it could turn out. The fire roasted eggplant flatbread is running late. The edible hasn't kicked in time for the movie. The wine lacks a certain weight and the folks at the next table are ready to strangle each other. Live long enough and life costs you an axle. Love hits the wall more often than not, and the rubbernecking results in muscle sprain and hyphenated discs. The downward arc of history crashes on your lawn. Corporate names become your own. Surly besides become convention. Live long enough and people implore you to pray for them. Pray they be rid their cancer and conceit. And you do because maybe they know something you don't. That short of the nuclear option, what else is there? Strafe downtown, torch town hall, increase the Valium and Xanax? Live long enough and the choice becomes abuse or entertainment. Your dynamic points of interest dull. The sand becomes listless. Tariff and sanction scintillate. You come to terms. Live long enough and you tire of doing this, that, this, that, every little fucking thing. But maybe that's how this shitstorm passes. In service to someone in need, to someone mistaken as foreign, to someone you saw as a stranger, a careening penitent inclined to believe. This is from, I don't know, it's from one of the books, but it's called Eleanor's Purse, simply because we know that women carry the whole world in their purse because guys are too lazy to carry it in their pockets. So this is called Eleanor's Purse. Eleanor's purse held many things. Everyone's prone to the shivers and yips, she says, curating her bag with a passion that few possess. This here's for bloating, she puffed, holding a change of face and coin, one small vial, 2 orange pills, 3 sets of 60, 4 counts of felony, 5 major headaches, 6 Christmas trees, 7 separate somethings, 8 triple ply, 9 bold remarks, 10 turtle doves, 11 assorted mints, 12 novellas, and you lose at least 90 minutes of life stuck in traffic each day, she'd insist. No stranger to the truth, but not quite its kin. God wields without partiality, she'd note, handing you a hammer. One of the things I've really been into over the last 6 months or so is doing haikus. And I'm posting them every day online on Facebook if you're interested. But we'll go through a few of them. Like old bones, the trees crick and crack, rub together, ache, dull, gray, brown, brittle. Gray the ocean gull, the hair on the fisherman's head, driftwood, shoreline, stone. In small rooms without windows, the high humor of comrades lost in jazz. The squirrels on Cape Cod all wear fishermen's caps. Squirrels on Cape Cod. Will you be with me when my work is done and rest once more together? Recall me as the Cape wind rises, settles on your exquisite face. As I place the root, I bid the pink laurel well as I place the root. Cat on my pillow, and she beside me dreaming, peaceful here I am. As the wind chases my words away, the sand will not hold my footsteps. Fallen leaf for each of us, a bed of color on which we will rest. Walking God's woods, I release my sins. I move more lightly. I am clean. This next poem is from a new chapbook or collection, bigger collection that I'm putting together called Circling Plains. And this is the title. I used to call it title tracks on LPs and CDs. So this is the title track of the book. And this is called Circling Plains. And the word vernissage means the evening before a gallery opening. I think it's French, but don't quote me. I spent vernissage circling plains with Merwin and O'Connor. When writers worry, they do God's job, she said to Bill, who replied, each stone leads back to the mountain. Now, I couldn't keep up with them even if I weren't 4 shots down on an empty stomach and hadn't been drunk with the night before with E.E., who told me, live by love though the stars walk backwards. Here's our drinks, I declare, no longer the dumbest of the 3. I'm pretty sure we all know someone who somehow isn't in our line of thinking anymore, whether it's politically or socially or culturally or whatever the case might be. And this is called one of them. A certain suburban gonad twister and a scorpion maid buy the house next door, and there's no playing field long enough. No playing field wide enough to escape his agitation. The mechanical slur of his fictional lawn, his rude machines that cut the land his imperial way. He's one of those gearheads who RPM and revs you awake every Saturday at 8 a.m. Hoards long jockeys and talks to his tools. Yeah. He's one of them who I wouldn't have dreamed to have called one of them that weekend at Woodstock, Newport, Monterey. Except for a good friend of mine and a couple of good friends of mine who are living in Texas, I don't know why Texas is even a state. And this is called The News from Texas. I pay her tab. I plant the bomb. I bump into Elvis in aisle 9. The news from Texas is never good. I'm going to go back to a handful of haikus. My chronic mission, the forgetting curve, still I chase the liar's tongue. Like old trees fall in forest, old poets fall from familiar pages. This is a new one. I literally wrote it last night. Crazy day, sunset, August fading, autumn nears, hummingbirds, dogfight. The world tipped its hat, shook a rain stick, a snow globe, a child's bag of seed. Her mouth of color fortifies, eases the truths I've learned this day. Like a fool, wise man too will die, his marker too, cold, coarse, granite, stone. The world does its work, sways the hay grass, shakes the trees, holds the trees alight. Hear Monet's bamboo, pray the wind, the bird song of Giverny ascends. On Straight Street, widows weep, martyrs walk, harps afire, the sky tide opens. In my memoir of listless cognition, all your chapters will be named. Pigeons trilling, wren chorus, crow swan orchestra, mingle in the morning. The king of the king of curtains, the queen of drapes, danced in a windowless castle. And I'm going to close out with 3 poems. This one from a book entitled American Mental. And this is called The Irreversible Future. We oohed and awed at the 64 World's Fair and the droids that would take our work, that would take to. We oohed and awed at the 64 World's Fair and the droids that would take away our work and give us more time with the kids. More time to smoke, to read and watch, to drink and fuck some more. Raw metallic arms did the work of 50 men without unions and overtime. Hulking, huge brains sprayed pretty light and reasoned our equations. The atom had no blowback. The wonderful world of chemistry was just one pill. We marveled at modems and picture phones. Big oil gave us dinosaurs. The happy plastic family heartened us all. Different trips, same monkey. Disney ruled the air. Weather stations under the Arctic ice would correct the world's climate. The cities of the future had no ghetto that we could see. They were less sad and frantic than those to come. No one homeless, no one alone. Jetpacks. Ooh. Space stations. Ah. Deserts where farms where dark robots pick the fruit. The Mick was there. I saw him amid the supercars, the Kennedys without Jack, for the darkness did just dawn. We oohed and ahed, zipping on the monorail, carrying our radiated dimes and nickels. Or were they pennies? I forgot all about the poor. We explored the mysteries of a woman's mind. Wisconsin cheese, 3D led to 4G, 5. They say we don't need 6. We oohed and ahed and became. I'm going to close with 2 more. One's an oldie, I guess if you could call it a poet's greatest hit. I think this is one of them. And it's from, well, I don't know, it's from one of the books. I don't know. And it's called Gracie. There's a grammatical error up ahead that will change everything. How and why, I don't know, because off the top of my head, each mad essay must cast doubt on the one before, or at least lend a hand to its aberrant cause, which makes for unsure seasons, rising seas, and a lack of wonder. And I know, really I do, I know you all have better places to be, like Dunkin' Donuts or debtor's jail. So I'll try to get to what I'm getting at before I get to where I'm going, which was to talk about Gracie Allen, who knew that today's postage stamp was yesterday's head of state, that a country of checks and balances relies on those checks, and that you never place a comma where God has put a period. And I'm going to close with this relatively new one. It's another one based on a true story. Emily and I were supposed to do a lot of things out west in December of last year, and it just didn't happen. This poem kind of explains it. It's called Just Two Guys on the Astral Plane. How'd you get here so fast? St. Peter asks. So I say, I had a 7-mile jump on all the rest. We were 38,000 feet above Charlotte, I say, knowing full well, he knew full well, and was testing my wry candor. I know it was the wine, I say. He then quoted the heavenly manual. You come when you're called and you wait in the queue. But I'm here now if ever I was, I say, my blood pressure cuffs still on my arm, my shoes untied, my shirt undone, my hair a quiff of its former coif. Hey, 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 Pete, I say, unrepentant. We're just two guys on the astral plane rooting for the same team. So come on, tell me, just what did the big guy say? You're in, he said. Now wait right there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leopold.
Louise, how's that? I had 2 poems. One's old, one's new. The first one is in 2 parts. It's called The Boy in 3rd Grade. Part 1. Telephone rings in the middle of my chicken noodle soup. I'm not selling anything, sir, the man says on the other end. Would you mind answering a few survey questions? It'll only take 5 minutes. Okay. What do you do for a living, sir? I'm a poet. The anonymous interviewer chuckles. No, seriously, sir, what do you do for a living? Part 2. Later, I ponder the origin of this pursuit that strokes the mirth of inquisitive strangers, and I keep going back to the boy in 3rd grade, Greg, with the green shirt, who made Mrs. Denzer blush. We were all in love with her, staying after school to clean erasers, lower shades, pilfer whiffs of her perfume. She taught us about poems and why she liked them and why we should too. Her eyes green as Greg's shirt. At the end of class, everybody wrote a poem. Greg read his, and her cheeks transformed into American beauty roses. Her eyes filled with wet adrenaline, the fat smile on Greg's face, my envy, like a hemorrhage hanging in the sweet, moist air. She said he had written the most beautiful poem she ever heard. And I still remember the first line, a dress walked by with a woman inside. That's the first one. And the second one is new. It's called Untitled. Said the poetry writing professor to the poetry writing students, poems need titles, good ones too. If it's a poem about your dog fetching a stick, don't name it my dog, name it my stick. Like lingerie, leave a little something to the imagination. Edgar Allan Poe once noted, if poetry hasn't ripped apart your soul, then you haven't experienced poetry. Well, class, anything capable of ripping apart your soul deserves a damn name. Would you have a baby and not give it a name? Would you adopt it a pet and call it dog or cat? Doesn't it need a moniker of some kind, an appellation, an alias, nomenclature from the legislature, a flag, a tag, a nickname at least? You may remember those nameless, brooding cowboys in spaghetti westerns, or perhaps the 1972 soft rock hit A Horse with No Name. Well, friends, your horse needs a damn name. And in my opinion, so do all those sweaty, brooding cowboys. Think of your poem as a living, breathing, evolving splash of space glitter on the page. Space glitter deserves a title. And if your poem calls you drunk as hell at 3 a.m. from county jail, you get your ass out of bed, you swing by the ATM, and you bail your poem out of jail, because that's exactly what your poem will do for you if you just give it a name, if you just give it a chance to love you the way you deserve to be loved, and the way it deserves to be loved too.
Do what I
Thank
can.
you.
So I'm going to read a poem from my collection, which is called The Gift of Glossophobia. And glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. And in my case, I take it a step further to, it's the fear of voicing my opinion, which I believe I've overcome through this collection. I'm going to read a poem titled Under the Overpass. And it was actually published in Chronogram here in the Hudson Valley. Under the Overpass. Under the overpass, a vow spray painted by one vandal love struck. I carry your heart. A line from E.E. Cummings, the poet and rule breaker known to spurn the period and break up with capitals, who young women came up to him on the streets of New York to offer bouquets of flowers. Be my darling and carry my heart. For you, I will break all the rules. Against the concrete pillar one day below the rumbling of traffic from the overpass, the graffiti love note is roller painted over. This smitten driver obsesses, questioning, did lovers erase the words, or did a God hand of government prevail? Exhaust blows by, so who can see what isn't there anymore? Oh, time passes, but tonight under the overpass, headlights flare, the stars plunge through a dark, cold night. The concrete pillar reflects a fresh pairing of words, beams, carry on. Thank you for listening.